And now it's time for Ag on 8, where we share ag news impacting you. Well, it's likely you may have heard of the Farm Bill. It's a national piece of legislation with 12 titles that applies to a number of topics within food and agriculture. And now in Iowa, the Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship is planning to introduce its own Farm Bill. It's all just in time for the state legislature to start on Monday. And it's why I caught up with Iowa Secretary of Agriculture, Mike Nag, to learn what's in the first Iowa Farm Act. Thank you, Secretary, for being here. We really appreciate it. We first want to ask you, what's the motivation behind introducing this legislation?
You bet. You just nailed it, right? We talk about in farm policy the Farm Bill. We're all aware of that happens nationally. But for the first time ever, we're introducing the Iowa Farm Act. And the concept is similar, which is that it's kind of a cross-cutting. We don't have 12 titles, but we've got 5 sections. But the idea here is, and look, after coming out of last legislative session, we went really across the state, talked with grower associations, agribusiness companies. I tour all 99 counties every year. I'm out visiting, listening, trying to identify are there barriers to businesses and growth. And we then took all of that work that we did and all that listening and put it into this comprehensive package. There has been ag legislation. There will be other ag legislation outside of this. But what we wanted to do was to really coalesce, bring together a diverse array of policy initiatives and some tax reductions as well, and put them into one package. The hope being, of course, that one, we can get some good attention to it and talk about it and bring a focus to agriculture and some of these challenges. But two, that we can get it passed through the legislature and signed by the governor. So we had seen this concept, of course, nationally. And then I had talking to some colleagues across the country, have seen that it's a model that has worked in some other states. And so we wanted to give it a try here in Iowa. And I've already heard from some folks saying, gee, it's about time. I can't believe we already haven't had this here in our state, given the obvious importance of agriculture.
Well, you mentioned it there. It's not the flashiest topic, but it's one that people care about. Taxes is always something that turns a lot of heads. So what does these new reforms that you've included in here mean for farmers and grain handlers?
Yeah, and again, I just want to stress, these all come from either a visit, a business, a farm, an association, a sector of our ag economy that expressed this concern. And so each of these has a real logic behind it and some an origin story behind it. One of the big ticket items, of course, is trying to bring some fairness. The state of Iowa has done a lot to reduce the income tax liability for retired farmers. And farmers don't have 401ks and pensions, right? They've got land and they've got their farm operations. And so this was just trying to level the playing field in terms of how they might be structured, estates, trusts, those types of things. That's a big item. A small item might be eliminating sales tax on purchasing bees. Bees, really, you should think of them, and they're treated just like livestock, and really, in a lot of sense. And you don't pay tax on buying breeding stock for cattle or pigs. Why do you have to do that on bees? Hey, it's not a big ticket item, but it matters to the people that I've met with throughout the year who said, yeah, this puts us at a disadvantage to place other places. So right there is a good example of how you've got a big item and a small item, but together they could move together as a package. The other is a grain excise tax. It's about $1 million that gets paid ultimately by farmers, collected by the state and then redistributed. It's very inefficient. It costs a lot to administer the program. Just another example of, hey, let's streamline. Let's take that one out. Let's cut a tax where we can. And those are the top 3 provisions within the financial sector of the section of the Farm Act.
Well, you mentioned livestock there. The bird flu, animals, have been a big topic over the last few years. What does this bill do to strengthen biosecurity?
Well, we're really on a nonstop effort to try to improve our ability as the state of Iowa to respond to foreign animal diseases like high path that you mentioned. But we also need to think ahead to things like African swine fever or foot and mouth disease. Could be devastating diseases. And the state of Iowa, our department needs to be more able to and more capable of responding on day one, meaning we need some equipment. We need some clarification around how we protect people's confidentiality. We are very transparent in talking about, hey, these are the type of species, where the farm is located, what is happening, what disease. But what we don't want to have to release is somebody's name and telephone number and things like that, the contact information. And so providing some additional protections there, because look, I don't want anybody to ever worry about calling us with a concern or with a disease outbreak because they're afraid that their information is going to be released somehow. And so it's some pieces like that that help protect farmers, but also make it so that that call is easy to make, and just generally allowing us to be better prepared to respond to a foreign animal disease outbreak. God forbid we would have one in the state of Iowa.
Well, there's a whole section about young farmers. How does this
Yeah.
legislation help them?
We've got multiple things going on with we getting farmers, and one of the maybe most exciting is around our Choose Iowa program, which is a signature branded program for Iowa grown, Iowa made, Iowa raised. And what we want to be able to do is we oftentimes are seeing young, beginning and new farmers coming into the program that way, selling cut flowers. Fresh fruits and vegetables, selling meat direct to a consumer, those types of things. And we offer grants for those efforts. And we want to provide an incentive, or we want to provide a little extra boost for beginning farmers in that scenario. Our bill is a little light on beginning farmer because I happen to know that I think there's going to be some standalone legislation coming, and we're anxious for that to be dropped as well. So here's an example of where you have another piece of legislation may end up working in conjunction with this. Stay tuned for more on that. And that's maybe an explanation of why it's not quite as heavy in our bill, but we're excited. We think there'll be some really solid, good movement on beginning farmer support and access to capital, access to land, those types of things as we move through the session.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about that. We'll have to be in touch on those topics there. I know that there are a lot of pieces in this legislation, which typically means it's more expensive for the Department of Agriculture. How much more expensive is it? Is that going to be a factor in this?
Well, absolutely. Every decision, has got some sort of financial impact, it would seem. And of course, what we have to recognize and be aware of is that there will be a very robust, we think, a good discussion around property tax reform and property tax reductions at the legislature this year. And so we know that as that bigger package moves, it'll affect ours as well. And so again, we're cognizant of that as we move through the session. The fiscal note exactly on this bill isn't, we're working through those provisions. But I would tell you that just from our standpoint, from the Iowa Department of Ag, we are asking for a modest increase, 1.6%. Just like anybody's home, anybody's business, we've got increased costs to take care of our folks and keep good people doing the projects and programs of the department. And so we're asking for that. We're also asking for an increased support for the Choose Iowa program. It doubled in membership this past year, and we've got a tremendous amount of interest in it, and we want to continue to build that out. That has a tremendous return to the state of Iowa in the form of sales, wages paid, taxes paid. So we think it's a heck of an investment for the legislature and the state of Iowa to be making, because it's got a heck of a return.
And what other aspects have we not covered?
Well, just look, this is conceptually, right? We take the diversity, the diverse array of policy initiatives that have come again from a lot of work that's been done over the last year to bring together this Farm Act and move it as a package. And I'm excited. I think this can really be a nice vehicle for years to come. I think this would be something we should be doing on a regular basis, just like that Farm Bill at the national level. The only thing that's constant in agriculture is change, and we've always got to be ready to take those next steps. So we're excited about what this can develop into. And of course, we want to work hard to get this bill passed through the legislature. And I do appreciate the support. Speaker Grassley, being a farmer himself, understands these things very, very well. But working with House and Senate agriculture chairs across the board, we've got great support for ag at the legislature. This is just another vehicle to get some good things done for our ag community.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Secretary. We'll have to catch back up later as the session continues. Well, last week on Ag on 8, we broke down the numbers for the USDA's Farmer Bridge Assistance Program. Well, here's a few of those per acre rates. Corn will receive $44.36 per acre, and soybeans $30.88. Rice almost $133 per acre, and wheat almost $40. It's why the USDA Undersecretary for Farm Production and Conservation, Richard Fordyce, joins us. He's here to break down the assistance even further. Undersecretary, thank you for joining us today. I first want to ask, why are there some differences between the crops on these per acre payments?
Well, Haley, it's good to be with you today. And a lot of calculations went into those rates. First of all, cost of production, and we know that cost of production probably is more with corn than it is with soybeans. The impact on the market from a lot of different aspects, right? And then just once we went through those calculations, I honestly I didn't know where those would land until the calculations were finished. And so I think that's why you see a difference. You know, I've talked to rice producers and cotton producers, who have talked about, those budgets that are required to grow a crop of rice or cotton. Certainly, corn and soybean folks, and they're just different. They just are, and the impacts on the market have been different as well.
And what do farmers need to do to make sure that they get these payments?
So great question again. We had actually, because we're paying on planted acres in 2025, the producer needed to have completed an acreage report. And, we know that 99.9% or whatever of farmers do a timely acreage report, but we had actually left acreage reporting open after the announcement until December 19th for folks to finish up those acreage reports if they hadn't had them done. So that's really all they need to do, because we will then know the number of acres that an individual producer has. We'll apply the formulas, and the forms will literally be pre-populated. So the producer is going to be notified by the local FSA office, either via email, phone call, whatever they like, however they like to be communicated with. They'll be made aware that the form is ready to sign. Some of our producers do that through a digital platform. Some of our producers actually go into the office. And again, that is up to them. However they want to participate, they can. But they'll be notified when the form is completed, and then they just basically need to sign the form.
And it's February 28th that those payments will start hitting bank accounts?
Yeah, we hope to have it out maybe just a little before, but that was a self-imposed deadline on our part by February 28th, and certainly we have all the confidence that we'll have those out by February 28th.
Wonderful. Well, I know a lot of farmers in my area are thankful for this assistance. They are slightly worried that this could keep their input costs high. Do you think that this is a legitimate concern for some producers?
We talked about that here when we were, designing the program. What does this assistance look like? Obviously it's important at an important time. But what does it do to input cost? Is there any incentive for, input suppliers to lower prices if they know farmers are getting payments? My hope is that the free market reigns, right? We're always in a supply and demand situation. My hope is that if the cost of nitrogen is less, and we would hope that it will be, because, with the price of natural gas and other kind of energy indicators, nitrogen ought to be less this spring than it was last spring. So, we're just hopeful that, that those kind of business approaches take place, and that, inputs are priced at where they need to be, not where they could be.
And these funds are authorized by the Commodity Credit Corporation Charter Act. What does that mean this money is coming from?
Well, so it ultimately is an appropriation from Congress, and it goes in, as you mentioned, to the Commodity Credit Corporation. The Commodity Credit Corporation funds a lot of things at USDA, and not only FSA programs, but conservation programs and trade programs. The CCC is used for a lot of things. It makes CRP payments out of the Commodity Credit Corporation, and so we felt like this was a way to do something using those funds for the orderly marketing of commodities, which is one of those things that we say that we can use CCC dollars for. And so ultimately, it comes from Congress in an appropriation into the Commodity Credit Corporation.
Well, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We've really done a great job of covering what this money is and where it's coming from. I know market development is a really big thing that a lot of my farmers are talking about right now, especially when it comes to soybeans. China, I'm reading a lot of reports that say that they fell a bit short of the promised numbers of bushels that they were going to purchase by the end of this year. Do you have any insight into where that's going into next year?
Yeah, so I would first of all say that I also share a deep passion with market development. I served on the United States Soybean Export Council board for 4 years some years ago, and was certainly involved in market development and all those sorts of things, finding new markets. I think from the China commitment perspective, I think there was some misunderstanding on what the definition of that was. And China's commitment of 12.5 million metric tons was for the 25 crop marketing season, right? So they're going to continue to purchase, but that could be, and I don't know this, but that could be February, March. But they have made a commitment, and that commitment is a floor of 12.5 million metric tons in the marketing year of the 25 crop, 25 million tons for the 26 crop, and 25 million metric tons for the 27 crop.
Is there any insight into how there could be, if there could be more emergency payments in the future?
I think, from USDA's standpoint, today, we feel like we've done what we can do. I know I've had lots of conversations with lots of farmers and trade associations, asking that very same question. And I think the answer today is that USDA, I think we feel like we've done all we can do at this point.
Is there anything else that's important to this program and this assistance that our farmers should know?
Well, as we discussed at the beginning, or right before this, Haley, I too come from a farm, and I know it's tough out there, and but I do know that farmers are resilient. We'll figure a way to get through this. I'm 100% confident in that. And hopefully, the farmer bridge assistance payments help a little bit. And I think it's important that we use the word bridge in the title of the program, because the hope is that these payments bridge us to the implementation of the One Big Beautiful Bill provisions that significantly raise reference prices as it relates to ARC and PLC, FSA's primary safety net program. There are other, there's base acre expansions, there's other things that came out of the One Big Beautiful Bill that we will have fully implemented by the time the 26 crop year is winding up. And so, I think better days are ahead. I truly do. And I can't wait. I know we're in 26, but I can't wait till we start seeing planters rolling in the field and just see what the growing season of 2026 is going to bring.
Undersecretary, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Haley. It's good to be with you.
There are new recommendations for a healthy diet. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Department of Agriculture released the latest set of dietary guidelines. Now we break down what's changed and what's controversial.
I think these guidelines were a bit of a surprise.
Well, there's no longer the old food pyramid or the My Plate chart. HHS and the USDA say that this inverted pyramid is putting real food at the center of health.
We saw recommendations to promote whole foods.
Grace Chamberlain is with the Center of Science in the Public Interest.
We saw a promotion of water as a primary beverage, and those maintained limits on saturated fat and sodium.
While the report keeps saturated fat levels the same, it also encourages Americans to eat more protein at every meal and consume full-fat dairy.
And there's a lot of contradictions that are going to make them really hard to implement for folks who run school meals, for example.
Chamberlain doesn't believe it'll be easy to meet the recommendations that emphasize meat and dairy, but also limit saturated fats. Secret Johannes with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association supports the release.
There's no more scapegoating of red meat, as the source of all ills in our diet or in our culture.
She believes it can play an important role in a healthy diet.
I think what these DGAs really stress is there's a serious need for more protein in the American diet. That's been long observed and backed up by science.
Well, we can't forget about your favorite packaged and sugary snacks, but the guidelines say that they don't quite meet the cut. They say to limit ultra-processed foods with added sugar and artificial additives. Chamberlain says historically, Americans haven't done a very good job of following the recommendations. However, they have had a big impact on the Foods for SNAP, WIC, and the National School Lunch Program. Well, it's the end of an era for a woman well known by those in Quad Cities' agriculture industry. Deanne Bloomberg is retiring. Now, if you farmed around the Quad Cities over the past 4 decades, chances are you've worked with her. Deanne spent years at the Boone, Henry, and then Rock Island County Farm Bureaus, and before taking a position with the Illinois Farm Bureau about 7 years ago. Well, much of her career was helping farmers and the media better communicate with each other.
I'm a kid of the farm crisis.
Yeah.
Graduating from DeWitt in 1986, going to Iowa State, and all I wanted is for farmers to feel like they could talk to the news media, but then also for the external communities to understand what farming provides.
Well, Deanne's been a big mentor in my life, and sad to see her retire. She can't announce her new role yet, but it will not be in agriculture, and we'll give her lots more family time. How great. Well, Deanne sat down with us to break down her career and the future of the ag industry. You can find that full interview right here on our News 8 Plus app. And as always, thanks for joining us for Ag on 8. We'll see you back here next week.